Hi guys, this is Mr. Smith, and I'd like to break down one of Mr. Hegarty's videos, maybe to help you understand a little bit, because I had a couple of emails from some of my Year 7 students who were struggling with the nth term, and they couldn't quite get to grips with what's going on here. What the nth term is, it takes a numerical sequence. For example, we have this one here, 7, 9, 11, 13, and 15, and it creates a rule. And it says, and once I have this rule, I'm describing what's actually happening within that sequence. I can find what that sequence is supposed to be once I know what the nth term is. The nth term tells me if, for example, I wanted to know what the 100th term of this sequence was. If I know what my nth term is, what the rule is, I can very easily find out what the 100th term is going to be. Otherwise, I'd have to write out 100 numbers. Because straightforward, if you take a look at this, you guys are looking at this, and on here we've got 7, 9, 11, 13, 15. And I think all of you can see here, it's just a sequence, it just keeps increasing by 2. Well, that's great. I mean, but if I want to find out what, then I say to you, okay, tell me what the 100th term is. Are you really going to write out 100 numbers and then try to figure out which one is number 100 and tell me that's going to be the 100th term? No, you're not going to do that. You want to try to figure out a shortcut, the fastest way to get there. So if I'm taking a look at this, from these 5 numbers, I could just do it with 4 numbers probably, but they usually do it in 5s. I can want to try to figure out what that nth term, what the rule is going to be. Now, what's important to understand with the sequence is when you take a look at this 7th, that's number 7, that number 7 is in the first position. The 9 is in the second position, the 11 is in the third, the 13 is in the 4, and the 15th is in the 5th. So if I was to ask you what's the 4th term of this sequence, you'd tell me it's 13. If I was to ask you what the 5th term is, you'd tell me it's 15. And that's why I need to find this rule, because by having this rule I can find out what any term is going to be. So let's take a look at what's happening here. As you've noticed, between each of these terms, it keeps increasing by 2. And I'm going to put a positive 2 in front of that. That 2 is part of my rule. I'm going to take this plus 2 and I'm going to create part of my rule and I'm going to put it in front of an n. 2n. Okay, let's take a look at this. As I was saying before, that 7 is in the first position, the 9 is in the second position, the 11 is in the third position, and so forth, and it keeps increasing like that. So what I'm really saying is that, in a way, I'm kind of saying that is what my n equals. This n equals, that's the first position, that's the second position, that's the third. The n stands for the number of the position. So how do we go about this? Going back, we find out we have a difference of 2 between each of the numbers. And we just put it in front of the n. We're saying I'm going to multiply that by n. Well, let's take a look what's actually happening. If I multiply 2 by 1, I get 2. How do I get from 2 to 7? I add 5. How about the second position? If n becomes 2, 2 times 2 is 4. How do I get from 4 to 9? I plus 5. This 3, when n is 3, the third position, 3 times 2 is 6. To get to 11, I plus 5. That's the correct algebraic way to go about it. But here's a little shortcut that I want to show you guys. If I go back to this first term, and now I go backwards to here, what would this term be? It would be a 5. All I'm going to do is I'm going to take that 5 and put it here. And this is my nth term. 2n plus 5. That is the nth term. Okay, so what if I want to find the 100th position? So let's say the 100th term. Now, again, if we look up here, I have this n. That's the number of the position, the first, second, third, fourth, fifth. Well, what if I'm trying to find position number 100? if I go back to here, I'm just going to say when n is 100, 2 times 100 plus 5 equals, well, 2 times 100 is 200, plus 5 equals 205. That will turn out to be the 100th position, the number that's in the 100th position of the sequence. What if I want to say I can also use this nth term to figure out, is a number in my sequence? So I don't know if it is. I'm going to take a guess, but let's say is 99 in my sequence. So if I was to keep writing this out and I keep going 17, 19, 21, you probably already know. But is 99 going to be in the sequence? Well, if you notice when I do this nth term rule, 2n plus 5, it equals one of these numbers that's in the sequence. So what if I say that my 2n plus 5 equals 99? So I have to try to figure out what maybe n will be. If I take 5 away from both sides, I'll end up with 2n equals 94. And if you're not too sure of how to figure out what 2 into 94 is, feel free to take out a calculator. But n would then be 47. Now, because n is 47, because it's a whole number, and that's the position of the sequence, I know that 99 is going to be in my sequence. It's going to be at position number 47. Let's try another one. Let's see, maybe become a bit clearer of this. So I want to find the nth term for this sequence here. I'm going to rewrite it out so it looks a bit better. 2, 7, 12, 17, 22. And now I'm just going to go through the process. I'm going to find the nth term. Every time, it keeps increasing by 5. That means I'm going to be multiplying my n by 5. So I put 5n. I could try to work it out, but I'm going to use that little shortcut I showed you on the slide before. If I go this way, what number would be here? Notice how it keeps going up by 5. So if I'm going to the left, I have to be taking away 5. So this number here would be a minus 3. I need to take that whole number and just put it here. So this 5n minus 3 is my nth term. And now I can use it to find out, well, what is the 100th term in this sequence? So I just substitute in for the n. 5 times 100 minus 3. 5 times 100 is 500. Take away 3 is 497. So without me having to write it out 100 times, I can figure out that it's going to be my 100th term in this sequence will be 497. Let's go back to what I was doing and say, well, how about 99? Is 99 in the sequence? Okay. So as I did before, if I say 99 equals 5n minus 3, so I have to figure out what n is going to be. If I add 3 to both sides, 102 equals 5n. And if I divide both sides by 5, I'm going to get n will equal, and I'm not going to do decimals here, but I could, but it's going to be 20 with a remainder of 2. Now, you know we don't use remainders in year 7, but 20 remainder 2 means it's not a whole number. And again, going up here, n equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For the number to be in the sequence, that n must be a whole number. So 99 is not in the sequence because when it's 99, n is 20.4, 20 remainder 2. Let's take a look at one last one. Now I've got a sequence that goes down. A bit tougher to do. Maybe. Let's take a look. So I'm going to rewrite it out. 12, 9, 6, 3, 0. Well, what's happening here? It's going down by 3 every time. It's not getting bigger, it's getting smaller. But we still do it exactly the same way. I say, what is happening each and every time between those numbers? I'm taking away 3, minus 3, minus 3, minus 3. And I just take that minus 3 and I put it in front of my n. Minus 3n. So what goes after it? Well, I do exactly the same thing. I go to the left and I say instead of minus 3, I'm adding 3. And this number here, this 15, is a positive 15, and it goes there. Minus 3n plus 15 is your nth term. And again, the same thing happens if I want to find out what the 100th term is. I just substitute in where that n is, minus 3 times 100 plus 15. Negative 3 times 100, I hope you realize it's minus 300, plus 15. Be careful here. Negative 300 plus 15 is not negative 315. It is minus 285. So the 100th term in this sequence, if you kept writing them out and you got to 100 numbers, would be negative 285. I hope this explanation has helped you out a little bit. And that maybe if you're having a little bit of trouble with the nth term, do hope this has helped you out a little bit. Maybe you can add to your notes in your book. And maybe we'll see you again sometime soon for another lesson. Take care. Bye-bye.